Welcome Ms. Sheila Sweat. She's an experienced consultant and engineer in the elevator escalator business, working for over 35 years in layout design, engineering, field operations, modernization, and for the last 25 years as an expert witness, consultant, and inspector. She currently owns and runs Sweat and Associates, a nationwide all-inclusive elevator consulting and elevator engineering firm, as well as Elevator Technical Services, a company that provides elevator and escalator safety inspection and testing services in the Houston, Texas area. Her interests lie strongly in the modernization arena, which utilize her experience as well as her commercial and industrial design strengths and analytical skills in both application engineering and construction. And might I add, she can shake a mean leg on the dance floor. Welcome, Sheila. Welcome back. Next, I welcome Mr. Raj Parkhi. Mr. Parkhi is an elevator and escalator expert with over 35 years of experience and is now a Singaporean citizen. He's worked with Olympus, or formerly called Bharat Bijlee Limited, and Otis for more than 15 years in India and abroad. He has expertise in handling mega and high-rise elevator projects. He founded SAR Elvo in 2005, an elevator company in Singapore, and is also one of the co-founders of the Global Elevator Academy. He ventured and diversified to start a global trading company, Greenbox, in Singapore, and we welcome him on stage very warmly. Mr. Raj Parkhi. Next, I welcome Mr. S. Shankar. Mr. Shankar is an electrical engineering graduate from PSG College of Technology, a renowned engineering college in Coimbatore. After graduating, he started his career with Otis Elevators in Chennai as a graduate engineer trainee in the year 1987. After a stint of about 5 years, he embarked onto his first overseas job to Bahrain to work with Schindler, and after that, about 9 years, shifted base to Dubai to work with Mitsubishi. He had a long tenure of 14 years with Mitsubishi and then took a detour from OEM to component supply and joined ZIEHL, ABEGG station in Dubai, handling the Middle East countries. With an elevator career spanning more than 3 decades, he decided to start his own consultancy to provide assistance to customers in the Middle East to facilitate sourcing of elevator components for assembling of elevators. We're very proud to have him amongst us. Mr. S. Shankar, please. The final panelist for today is Mr. Boga Verk. If I'm pronouncing that name right, please excuse me. I will request if you can please hold your own introduction once you're back up on stage. All right, without any further ado, what I would request now is Mr. Gopalakrishnan Shankar to please deliver the opening address and then carry on with the proceedings of the panel discussion. Mr. Shankar, please. My apologies to the panelists. If I can please request you for a group picture. We start off the session with a group picture because by the end of the session, we actually give it to you as a souvenir. My apologies. Can I request you to come to the front of the stage?
Ranjit, thank you very much for that very kind introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to this final session of ISEE Expo. And I have great pleasure in also warmly welcoming my fellow panelists out here, a distinguished panel for this afternoon. I'd like to start by saying that TAC and I, of course, go back a long time. But the first thing that I'd like to mention is that this is an amazing show. TAC and TAC Expo and the team out there have put together a fantastic show out here, and they're already planning for 2024. So I'd like to start by giving them a very big hand. TAC and company. Okay, and of course, it's a privilege to be here today, thanks to TAC Expo, TAC and his team, and all the other members of his team who have made this event possible and have invited me here today. I'm going to make my presentation fairly brief. We have 5 distinguished speakers. I'll talk briefly about the Indian market, and then at the end of the session, we hope to have some discussions on questions and answers. A few words about my company, not more than a few words. Yeah. So we are a management consulting company established in 1985. I have a postgraduate diploma and MBA from IIM Calcutta. Prior to that was with the St. Xavier's College right here in Mumbai. So with that, I worked in firms and then started consulting in 1985. And we work in the areas primarily related to marketing, strategy. We help foreign companies to set up operations in India. We research markets, and we research markets not only in India, we research markets elsewhere as well, beyond India as well. And apart from the building materials and equipment, which is namely elevators, escalators, and other equipment and so on, we also work quite a bit in the space of metals as a part of our consulting profile. So that's just a brief, quick introduction about MCG. You can always look up our website for further information. These are some of the verticals that we are in. I'm going to talk to you briefly about the Indian elevator market. Of course, to begin with, I think one of the things that we need to understand a bit is about the Indian economy. The Indian economy, we had a couple of years of dip post the pandemic and the lockdowns and so on, but it recovered fairly smartly in 21. And going forward this year, 22-23, the beginning of the year, everyone was fairly optimistic, expecting a GDP growth rate of 7.2, 7.3%. But since then, there have been certain adverse winds. There have been, so it's slowed down a bit. So currently, RBI and State Bank and other banks are forecasting the growth closer to about 6.8, 6.9%. But even then, that would still be one of the fastest growing economies of the world. And if we take a longer term, because one should really look at markets long term and not look at short term. So if you look at long term, you'll find that the Indian market over the last 20 years has pretty much grown consistently at an average of about 6.2 to 6.3%. In some periods, it has spurted up to 8% or 8.5%, but sometimes it's come down to 5%. But as an average, it's an extraordinarily strong growth that the Indian economy has shown. And the other part about the Indian economy is that it's a very resilient economy. It's largely self-sufficient. So we don't get into situations of runaway inflation and so on, and nor do we get into a panic on foreign exchange resources and things like that. It's a pretty well-managed economy. So going forward, yes, the next few years, maybe 6.5%, 7%, but it will continue to grow fairly steadily. So coming to the elevator market, what we see here are some numbers. The market, if we go back in history, we'll find that in different periods, it's been growing differently. And between, let's say, 2004 to 2010, maybe it may have grown at 13 or 14% per annum, the elevator market. And by elevator market, I mean the orders booked in a given financial or calendar year. So the market went up to about 75, 76,000 in 2019, and then of course took the big dip in 2020, where the market did shrink by about 15-20%, but it has recovered fairly smartly. And for the current financial year, 22-23, we are forecasting the market at about 84,000 units, 83,800 units. And going forward, yes, we think that the markets will grow between 7-8%. One thing about the elevator industry here, because since it follows the building and construction sector, we find that the elevator industry grows a bit faster than the GDP growth rate. So we expect that there would be a growth of about 7 to 8%. And the other thing that is also happening is that, so the other thing that's happening out here is that contrary to what it was, let's say, 20, 30 years ago, when the markets were all completely focused and concentrated in the big metro cities, we are seeing the emergence of the second-tier industry, the cities. The smaller cities, even the smaller cities have population of 2 million, 3 million, and so on. So these are all emerging as big markets now in India. So there is tremendous amount of interest in going further into hinterland. So we see that now growth is taking place in multiple places in India. We saw, for example, 10 years ago, everybody said, Bengaluru or Bangalore was the growth market, but today everyone's talking about Hyderabad. So, and then it goes on, it just picks up, another city picks up the speed and it goes forward from there. Here you have some numbers on the market by the regions. West, North, and South are still the leading regions. But what we see going forward in terms of trend is that South is expected to grow faster, right? And then followed by West and North. I mean, that's the way we expect things to move going forward. The other thing is that the MR, MRL, I think a lot of questions about the percentages, but it's very clear, I mean, that the whole market is moving towards MRL. And it's quite fascinating because 8 or 10 years ago when we've done similar kinds of studies and so on and so forth, when MRL was just about making an entry, people didn't expect so much of quick shift to take place. Just the other day, we met a very small elevator manufacturer from Kerala. And so I asked him this question, that do you make both MR and MRL? He smiled, he looked at me and he said, MR? Why would anybody want MR? We do only MRL. So, it was, and he's a small manufacturer who makes another 30, 40 elevators a year. And that's the other characteristics about the Indian market. The fact that there are a very large number of small manufacturers. I mean, the numbers could be 600, 700, 800, vast number of small manufacturers all over, assemblers you could perhaps call them. And therefore, the issues which TAC keeps talking about every now and then about safety, the fact that we don't have very rigid standards, the standards are not being implemented, being enforced, and so on. These are some of the issues that the industry has to resolve over a period of time to make sure that the elevator industry is seen to be delivering very high quality products. This is something the standards enforcement has to take place. So markets going forward, as I said, 7 to 8% growth rates. The regions, South is likely to grow faster. And of course, in terms of speeds, one of the things that has happened is that because of the pandemic and so on, we saw in 2015-16 fairly fast growth of 3 meters per second higher, etc. But that's slowed down because builders, I think, have had difficulties with budgets and so on. So lower speeds have been used where normally higher speeds would be required. So there have been some slowing down when we talk about 3 meters or 3.5 meters and above kinds of things. It's still an emerging market, but for the future, I think that would be one of the spots of the industry. Then there are just 2 points that I want to make here before I close, which is about import and export. I think on one hand, you will see that the elevator components import has gone up tremendously over the last 3, 4, 5 years. These are data from the Government of India's statistics. These are available in the public domain. But what I think is also interesting is that this provides a tremendous opportunity, I think, for the domestic component manufacturers to really analyze this, slice this, dice this, but to see how they can increase their share going forward, so that they can become a global source for elevator and escalator components. So at the moment, of course, the imports are largely, it's a very large percentage that comes from China for reasons of cost as well. But going forward, I think over the next 10 years, I think there is a huge opportunity. So compared to import, of course, the export numbers are much smaller. It's really, we have hardly scratched the surface, as it were. But exports are taking place to a number of countries around the world. I think here again, I see a big opportunity for international companies to look at India as an alternate source. I mean, we have all the skill sets necessary, we have the technologies, absorption, and there's a fair amount of government support as well. So with that introduction to the Indian market, I will close my presentation and request Massimo to start his talk, and then the others. Massimo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shankar. I'll let you clap. Thank you very much. And I start saying thank you to Mr. Tak Matthews for having me here today to make this presentation. And my name is Massimo Bezzi. I'm the president of EFESME. EFESME acronym means European Federation for Elevator Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. Also, our organization, our federation, who is based in Belgium, in the European capital, is representing the SMEs and is working with the aim to represent one single voice in front of the European Commission. Our federation is representing all the many of the national members, many of the national countries. We are representing 14 European countries and 15 national members. And then the national member associates are components manufacturer and companies who are making installation and maintenance. Today we are representing approximately 3,500 companies all over Europe. And we are very, very active at technical level with seven technical experts. We are involved at CEN level, also European level, giving our contribution with the European norm, and we are working at international level in the ISO group. Basically, this is our activity and what we are developing for our organization. I let the introduction of I move forward with the other panel. Perfect. I was not aware if you want to introduce the other organization or if we move forward with the all. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. About the market trends, I'm not so detailed like the presentation performed by Mr. Shankar, and market trends. I want to start with the first picture given by the pandemic situation, also the COVID situation. We have had an abrupt halt in our sector. Then, because the recognition of our sector as necessary and essential, we have been able to restart our activity. Obviously, during the last 2 years, with a strong reduction of activity about when we are talking about installation. Just to give you a number, in Europe we have 6.5 million elevators installed and in service. And as I mentioned, also we have been recognized as necessary activity. Also, everything restarted, and today, after 2 years, we have a different picture, a post-pandemic picture. And our sector regain stability, and the outlook for the next 6 months is upward for all the industry. And the competition trends is to have intensified. Only one thing we have seen, that the situation we are facing in Europe, also the increasing cost of raw material on one hand, and the scarcity of the material has a big impact on first of all on the price increase of the different products, and on the other hand on the lead time of the products. Why the lead time? I mentioned the lead time because in the different countries after the pandemic period we have seen a strong increase of the market, because different situation and because the different support given by the different government and the different state aid. Just to make a picture, in Italy, the government after the pandemic decided to give a strong support in the building sector, giving the possibility to make the refurbishment, the refit of the building with an update in respect of green technologies, and the elevator has been included as well. And the support the bonus can reach the 100% of the investment. Also, that means more or less you can make the update of your building, your house for free. And this has been a tremendous relaunch of elevator sector as well. And today, the different components manufacturers are still facing difficulties to give answer to the elevator company. And on the other hand, the elevator company are facing a lack of manpower with serious difficulties. But obviously, it's a big bubble, important bubble of business that the companies are facing, let me say, with happiness on one side. Well, in the other countries, completely different situation. Only the Italian situation is really particular and, let me say, unique. But in the other country, the situation is, and the trend is growing up, and now is reaching a situation, a pre-pandemic situation, and the market trend remain more or less the same like before COVID. Also, hydraulic traction and electric traction are remaining the quite balanced in the different countries at European level. One thing I want to highlight, given the COVID situation, many of our organization invested a lot in digital solution, and digital solution means hardware and software system under a software system dedicated to preventive and predictive maintenance. Probably the SMEs are, let me say, the last who are turning to this quite new system for maintenance. OEMs are much more better organized, but unfortunately not all the SMEs are available to invest in such type of technologies. Always about the market, we have to in this complex picture we can say that we have elevators that are playing an important role, but on the other hand, home elevator or platform lift depends from different countries. The name have platform of home elevator. Anyway, the home elevator in Europe means all the machines that are complying the machinery directive. Also, we reduce speed 0.15 meters per second. Also, this kind of product is now an important part of the sales at European level. In different countries are more or less important in terms of number. Anyways, is a kind of product that is growing in terms of number. And following the next point about having a look about the possible export opportunities for Indian components firms. Let me say that clearly Europe is a market fully open and is a market that is looking for new technology and innovation. And honestly speaking, going around visiting the different booths here in this exhibition, I've seen after 4 years many things change. I've seen an increasing level of technology and many companies are already using the high-level technology also ready to be exported in Europe as well. Only one consideration is that the companies in Europe like to have, they prefer to have the presence of a clear reference for service in Europe. And second point, and from my point of view, very, very important, is the consideration the company must to do is concerning the language barrier. Don't forget that in Europe, Europe is composed by 28 countries, and we have, if I'm not wrong, 25 different languages. And unfortunately, not all the country, in all the countries, it's easier to talk with people who are English speaking. Also, if you decide to export to Europe, as I mentioned, Europe is open, but be ready to talk different languages or to be ready with technical support in different languages. And from my side, about other opportunities from my side as a FESME, I think we have took a very important first step during this exhibition. We have had an important meeting with ICMAI 2 days ago. or yeah, 2 days ago, yesterday. And indeed, we believe that the cooperation between the association in the sector remain and is crucial to support the different action we want. And I want to focus on two actions. The first one is a collaboration in terms of exchange of activity, keeping each other updated about the different activities we are doing to promote the association and the activity of the association to our members, and the activity we are doing organizing exhibition, and on the other hand is very important the technical activity we are developing. I think in Europe what we are doing is for the SMEs remain and is very, very, very important, and we want to be for ECMAI association one reference, and we are fully open to start an exchange, a technical exchange, and to give all the support they need. Also, I hope really that we are able to start this collaboration and this cooperation. Thank you very much again, and I give you the floor again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Massimo, for that outline of the European market and the trends and the opportunities. I think in particular the audience would have noted that the fact about escalating costs out there and the opportunities that are open, and it's pleasing to hear that EU is open to exports from India. So, and also the tips about the service side, etc., are extremely useful. May I now request Mr. Suleiman to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Shankar. First, I want to thank Mr. Tak and Mrs. Priyanka for this great organization of 3 days of organization and the opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. I am Süleyman Özkan. I am Managing Director of Lift Institute Solutions. Lift Institute Solutions is part of Lift Institute Holding, which is established in the Netherlands in 1933. And the holding have different business units. I'm leading solutions, which is providing consultancy, design, engineering, and training services. We have another entity who is doing certification globally according to European and American, North American standards, like Otis, Schindler, Thyssen, TK Elevator, and Mitsubishi are our reference customers. And we have one more entity who is responsible of inspection business, especially in Europe and North America. Coming to information input about the region that I am coming. In Turkey, as you may hear maybe from the news, there is a high inflation. It is about 80% this year. After the COVID especially, it started to increase. But indeed, it doesn't have a really big effect to the vertical transportation industry because of Turkey's geographical position and also government support to the market. After pandemic, Turkish government decided and announced vertical transportation industry as strategic business segment for the country and opened good amounts of investments and credits to elevator companies. These created for existing companies the opportunity to extend their production range and the capacity and also improve the infrastructure of production. But also it created new big companies in the Turkish lift market, big producers. And next to this, Turkish Housing Authority established an elevator and escalator production, installation, and maintenance company. Huge production facilities in the center of Turkey. Let me go ahead with some amounts, some numbers in the country. It is not 100% clear, but the number of the installed elevators in the country is around 700,000 units. And the number of the new installation before pandemic, it was around 50,000 units per year. Pandemic affected it and reduced, but still now it is around 30,000 units per year. But the production capacity in the country is much more than this. It is around 100,000 units because of the location of the country. It creates big opportunities because Turkey is just next to Europe and also very close to Middle East, which are big markets, and also close to Ukraine and Russia. And this creates opportunities if you are there, if you have facilities or production in the country, then it is it is very competitive in comparison with how I should say, selling the products from China or India to Europe, because of especially the transportation costs and timing, also delivery time. In Turkey, when you load the truck and next morning it will be in the Germany, which is heart of Europe, but from China or here it will take much more time and cost also will be high. So it is an opportunity to reach these big markets that I mentioned if you are in Turkey. And regarding the export opportunities from India to Turkey, of course it is always possible. Turkey is an open market, and the required thing is only in compliance with European lift regulations and should be competitive products. But more than that, it is good to be in Turkey to reach the big markets next to the country, like Europe. Let me mention again, Europe, Middle East, and I hope the war in Russia ends soon, and then these two countries also will be a huge market, and Turkey will be one of the first hub for export to these two countries as well. Yeah, I want to keep short, and these are the information that I wanted to share. And at the end, if there are questions, I will be very happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Suleiman. I think you gave a quick outline of the opportunities. I think we do realize that Turkey is also a very competitive producer of elevator components, elevators, as well as escalators. But I think what's an interesting point that you made was that Turkey could be a springboard to getting into these markets. So Indian companies could look at partnering with Turkish companies and then establish base there to go further into Europe and so on. I think that's some very useful tips that you've given us. So thank you very much for that. Our next speaker is Sheila. So may I hand over the mic to you, please. Sheila.
Hello, my name is Sheila Sweat, and I'm a consultant in the U.S. and also the executive director of the International Association of Elevator Consultants. My presentation is a little bit different, as am I. This presentation is based on an Elevator World presentation to the IAEC and the NAEC spring events. Thank you, Elevator World, for allowing me to use some of your research. There are between 27 and 30,000 elevator mechanics in the United States. The average base pay in 2022 for an elevator mechanic was $91,000 US per year. The average actual pay for an elevator mechanic was $130,000 a year. And this is immensely over the middle of income for the United States. They predict a growth of 6% on pay for the union, and this should be pretty close because they just signed another contract, which would take it very close to $150,000 per year. So that is one portion of the price of your elevators. Currently, the product market share on new installations in the United States is still 25% hydro, 59% MRL, and 6% other. So we have gone, the traditional overhead elevators are now called others. Industry trends, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, show that non-residential construction had a decline of 6,400 jobs in the specialty contractor market in the United States. Elevator mechanics fall into that market, and they mirror what the elevator industry in the United States is doing. It is believed that this is due to a shortage of qualified special workers or elevator contractors. But it doesn't matter if you have a boom, if no one there is qualified to install your elevators, then you're going to have a delay. That sometimes is the has problems with the timeline of the building itself. The projects in pre-planning stage of construction are taking 9 months longer to break ground than they were prior pandemic. They are forecasting a decrease in retail and private office construction, which will correlate to a decrease in elevator construction. It is estimated that the U.S. will need about 1 million additional construction workers in the next 2 years. And construction labor in general is not top on the list of young people to build careers in. New York City construction-related accidents are down 40% in the last 4 years, and it is going at an equal rate. It's been going down about 10% a year for the last 4 years, and the death rate is down 34%, which is also a similar situation. Elevator World sent out surveys in the United States to every name it had that had anything to do with elevators. So it's complete list of elevator companies, elevator maintenance companies, elevator installation companies, elevator consultants. If elevator was in your name, you got one of these surveys. The survey requests revealed a lot of information about that level of operation. COVID restrictions are down, and 70% of current survey respondents say COVID is not affecting their overall business. Things that are affecting their overall business is access to buildings, mask and vaccination mandates, lack of travel in their budgets, and lack of in-person meetings. The supply chain disruptions have been the major problems. The survey says 34% of respondents see an increase in work, 29% see no difference in work, and 16% are seeing a decrease in work. That is pretty substantially optimistic in that category. It is rumored that there's an urban exodus which would begin to affect the elevator industry, but actually only 2 cities have seen what could be considered a mass exodus, and those cities are New York City and San Francisco. Most experts are calling this a shuffle instead of an exodus, in that they're moving further away due to their ability to work from home, because this actually increases their wages. If they move from one state to another state that has no income taxes, that's a direct increase. Both of these cities have huge real estate costs, and both of them have very difficult transportation into the cities. The employers said that 52% of the businesses have increased wages significantly. 48% say only giving a cost of living expensive, the cost of living and a normal raise. However, since the cost of living appears to be up 10%, that is significant raise to these people. The labor shortages and strategies, they gave notes of how to correct and increase those. For the long term, they said that we have to stop selling college degrees as the only path to a successful career. We need to demonstrate to our young people that trades also provide great jobs and careers. Increase worker pay to attract people in the building trade. So again, increase that pay. However, in the case of elevator mechanics, they are the largest paid labor group in the United States. So I'm not sure what increasing that, which is already the largest, is going to help them. I grew up in the construction industry, and my father said that the richest man on his subcontractor list was the plumber. So I guess there's something that is more needed than elevators. They said that we need to work to increase women in the trades. And they asked the question, how? I answer that question, ask a woman. Develop sensible immigration policies and train and hire more minority and lower income youth and adults into the trade. Opportunity is there if they put the opportunity out. Veterans and military transitioning out of service may be interested in the trades. They're accustomed to low wages. They have skills. They respond to instructions and show up on time. So they're already halfway trained. Short-term considerations, they said that there's a lot of people in the white-collar jobs that are unhappy. They're there because it was expected of them, but they may also be better suited to trades. Also, protect what employees you have, because the cost of training a skilled laborer in our market is huge. Connect with high schools, job fairs, trade schools, and advise what skills are needed, and they may change their curriculum to add or support your needs. Make recruiting a budget line item in your budget. Focus on safety, use technology to decrease paperwork, therefore increasing time on the job. Remote employees or the hybrid work environment, they seem to feel like that is going to continue. However, hybrid means different things to different people. There's been no increase in productivity for the hybrid workers. However, their morale is much greater. For construction workers, they like to see their boss visually every once in a while to take training and do safety, and it's a better morale builder according to the industry. So technology is what has made the remote work available, but don't go too far because trust in your employees is needed. The industry challenges, and this again goes back to the survey, 67%, this is the top 5. 61% say material cost. 54% say ability to hire qualified employees. 47% say fuel costs. 40% say wages and benefits, which I cannot imagine how much higher those can get for us. And 24% say healthcare costs. The top challenges that need to be met in the next 12 months, 60% say supply chain disruptions. Maintain your relationships in the industry. You're doing that today. You're seeing the suppliers. 58% say rising material costs needs to be lassoed. 47% availability of the skilled workers. 44% say inflation, and only 35% say economic uncertainty. Now, the cost of material affects, in order for you to be competitive, realize everyone is in the same boat. Costs normally increase quarterly, so the earlier you bid and the harder you bid is going to be the best for you as both material suppliers and elevator companies. But you need to start being competitive on the first go around, because some consultants are tired of multiple bid documents. Now, how's the disruption by shortages? I promise I'm almost through. Stainless steel availability has loosened, but the prices have more than doubled. So one counteracts the other. Material delays doubled in the last year, and delays cost money because all we have to sell is time. Products from China, specifically electronics, are causing more delays. Shipping times and costs are increasing by huge amounts. 40% increase by land freight, and 200% increase on ocean, across the ocean. The survey says 57% of the people surveyed say profits will increase. 28% believe profits will remain the same, and only 15% of the survey said that profits will decrease. How optimistic are you about our industry as a whole? Over 60% is somewhat and totally optimistic, and only 35% are somewhat pessimistic or completely pessimistic. Why do they have these feelings? People still will need elevators. They tend to break, and they must be maintained. Now, I did have mergers and acquisitions in here, but that's a discussion for another day. The women in the industry, the survey says 41% in field offices have women in their field offices. However, 0 have women in the field. 75% say they have women in leadership roles, and these are 1 to 5 women employees. They ask how they got into the industry, and 32% are family connections. This has always been the U.S.'s elevator industry. You have to ask who they're related to before you start talking bad about anybody. They were asked, have the numbers grown for women employees in the last 10 years? 67% says yes, and I want to know who the other 33% is. They asked if they planned on recruiting more women, and they said yes. So they decided that the improvement should be codes that are the same, A17 codes that are same across the states. The industry should embrace technology. There should be less reliance on repair income and more emphasis on value of service and maintenance. There should be a single industry safety policy. Incidents should be decreased. There should be better training and less reliance on overseas markets. Higher pay to decrease staffing shortages and more emphasis on trade schools. And it seems like everything else, other than the United States is going to have to start building material reserves. There is no more JIT. Just in time should leave the building. Safety, 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 because accidents are expensive no matter who has them. And stay positive. In-person events help by sharing mutual advice and best processes. And that is why we are here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila, for taking us through the contours of the elevator industry in USA and presenting the results of the Elevator World Survey. Yes, of course, I think you have huge challenges. I think a lot of eyebrows would have been raised here amongst the audience when you hear that the elevator mechanic gets paid $130,000. To translate that, that's a little over ₹1 crore a year. That's a great job. I think all of us would love to have. But in Indian rupees, I think those are big challenges for sure. But I think I also noted that you talked about technology and so on. That's another area I think in the Indian industry, where definitely people are looking at it, is how to move towards the industry 4.0, and some companies have already moved towards RMS, remote management services, and so on. So going forward, I think, yes, the Indian industry also will have to focus a lot more on technology, and we can similarly, companies aspiring to go abroad or export would have to keep that in mind. With that, may I invite our next speaker, Mr. Shankar from Dubai, to make his presentation.
Good evening, fellow panelists and industry colleagues. It's a real honor to sit in front of you all and give a little bit of an insight onto the Middle East market. Firstly, let me thank TAC for inviting me to come over to the expo and be a part of the panel. I'm not going to touch base on numbers because that's not my idea. What I'm trying to give you is the scenario in the Middle East. Middle East as such, it's an area which consists of about 12 countries with only one thing in common, which is the language. Every country has got its own dynamics, its own business model, and its own sentiments. A strategy you develop for one country doesn't work for the other one. So every country is by itself separate. Now let's come to the component requirement. Most of the countries have got assembly companies who do the assembly of elevators, apart from the OEMs, and the requirements of components have always been there. Unfortunately, they have been predominantly dependent on Turkey, and Europe. The reason being, of course, the bottleneck when it comes to India is the question mark on the quality of the product and the capability of the manufacturers. I'm sure with the new initiative by Honorable Prime Minister with the Make in India, and having seen, I've been based out of Dubai for the last 20 years and I keep coming off and on. Having seen the quality of our own components so many years back and what I'm seeing now, there is a phenomenal difference, and I'm sure we can compete on the global market. The question is how to do it. That's where the thing, because every country has got its own export procedures and so many other small things which have to be figured out. When it comes to country specifics, I will not touch base on everywhere. Like if you talk about Saudi Arabia and Egypt, the market requirement is quite huge, which is mostly, I would say, catered by the small timers who assemble elevators. I know for sure there are some components being still exported from India, and also some kits are going. But there is a possibility that the numbers could be substantially increased. And one country which I've discussed with so many people, and in fact one of my friend also came on invitation, which we have totally ignored, is Iran. Iran is a country which has got a requirement about 45 to 50,000 elevators a year, and no OEM is present there because of the sanctions. It is all being done only by assembly elevators. And they are dependent on components from everywhere else, though they manufacture quite a few within their country. So Iran is a country where European suppliers cannot supply. And, well, of course, from Dubai also we couldn't do it. So India has got a good relationship with Iran, and I'm sure people can explore the possibility of how we could do business with Iran. Because the numbers are phenomenal, and it's a cash-rich country where they don't have any problem with the cash. Thank you, gentlemen. Next to Raj. Anyway, before I conclude, I should congratulate TAC, Pramod, and our good friends for conducting an excellent show like this, and all the best for 2024 and 2026.
Yes, I also welcome Mr. Bogaberg, our last panelist who's just joined us. I'll introduce him a bit later. I will now hand over to Raj Parki. Before that, I think a couple of points that Shankar made which are worth noting is that we all tend to overlook Iran. Iran is a very big market. That's, I think, that needs to be explored a lot more in depth. Similarly, the other point that he made was about Egypt, saying that they are building fairly large cities out there, and therefore there's going to be an explosion for demand for elevators, escalators, and components. I think these are points well worth noting too. I now hand over to Raj.
Hello, thank you. This is Raj. I'm from Singapore. I've been there in Singapore more than 30 years, and I'm the founder of the SAR Elivo, and we have an office in Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And we have started in 2007 our company SAR Elivo. And a little bit more, I'm talking about the Singapore market. There is a total elevator is around 70,000 elevator and 36,000 escalator in the market. mostly captured by China and MNC market. 30% is the home elevator there, and 70% is passenger and freight elevator. And home elevator mostly from, you can say the 40% from China and 60% from European market. And keys technology in Singapore is now, they every time they have the new implementation is the safety and regulation then enhance. For recently they implement for UCMP and ACOP system, which is mandatory, will start it for those is more than 10 years old, all the lift they're going to implement. And now is they will implement for IoT system. If new elevator, they will try to be reduced for the service minimum, so they will monitor from the IoT system. This is the main concept is elevator industry. Most of the staff is 30% is local Singaporean and 70% is foreigners, is like India, Philippines, Vietnam and Cambodia. And elevator, home elevator, there is a big opportunity in Singapore. Of course, we have to comply the regulation for the EN 81 and SS 550 Singapore code. Component wise, of course, I'm agree with Shankar. There is a component we have to have better quality, and we can meet local standard. There is a requirement for the spare part, all captured by China. If we will deliver the good quality from India, there of course there is a big potential market for spare part. In fact, there is a home elevator. I'm saying the home elevator is good demand in the Singapore market. If we can match for the Singapore code, there's big opportunity in Singapore market. So that's all from my side. So I can.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. I think maybe you did say that Singapore market, there's a big, good opportunity for the future in terms of components and so on. I would presume that this would be similar as the case with the other markets. Of course, Thailand has a huge ecosystem of elevators and components, but surely Indonesia and Malaysia and other markets should also be open to the Indian exporters. Our last speaker today, I'd just like to quickly introduce him, is Mr. Bogavir, who's from Punjab originally. He graduated from the Punjab University in engineering and then moved on to Alabama. And after working with various elevator companies, he started his own elevator company way back in 1983 in Canada, and manufacturing a variety of elevating devices. He holds certain US and Canadian patents for curved stair platform lift, that is the Unilift, and he's a founding member of CSA code B355 lifts for persons with physical disabilities and so on. He has several other accolades, and he's currently the president of Unitech Elevator. And Mr. Virk, I'll hand over the mic to you now and request you, because of the interest of time, and at 5 o'clock we have to start the closing ceremony, maybe about 10 minutes. If you could take your presentation, please. Mr. Virk.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I got a little late. I haven't heard half of the presence over here, but I may be repeating some of the items which is already covered by my colleagues here. But anyway, I'm going to repeat it through it, maybe some in a short way. As I say, my name is Boga Virk. I'm of UT Elevator Company of Canada. And I have some facts about elevator and escalator market report, which probably somebody had covered over there for so far, but I'm not sure. It's covered from 2022 to 2023. And the first one, he says 2021, the market share worth was 92.5 billion. Expected to grow at a rate of 9.5% to 101.31 billion US dollars. by 2030 is supposed to grow at 9.5% and get it to the, I got the figure here, sorry, 136 billion in the future. And growth in the is expected to come from making elevators smart and energy efficient. The present situation of the Ukraine war is not helping the situation. Construction industry is focusing on to reduce engineering to get the green. Let me repeat it again. Sorry, I got a handwritten in the right in the construction. Construction industry is focusing to reduce the energy cost and to get to green accreditations. Elevator industry is a subgroup of the construction industry, so it is our responsibility to do the same thing and follow their lead. And the big part of the growth will come from making the elevators green, not just the green color, but the green in nature. Residential housing market is another factor that we have to consider. Population is growing, older, and want to live in their own houses and make our industry happy more because residential elevator is required more. Another insight I have 3 points to consider, like manufacturing parts and material which have moved away from the US and Canada, used to be able to get everything in Canada very quickly, simply available. Now chain supply is now more complex and needs more efforts. India does not have a supply chain warehousing partners in the US or Canada. It's very difficult to source the material from India. Distributors carry many parts and material from China or sourced through the big 4 companies. Open to buying whole and as a unit from India is more economical to buy, ship, test, and whole thing rather than source parts. Establishing quality and independence requires either certification or new ISO TCM 178 code, good starting point on trust and testing. And this is one major factor Indian manufacturing companies to establish the foothold in Canada and the US. And to have the footprints in Canada and the US, you basically have to go through some of the hoops which is imposed by the safety code, which is required. And that's one reason that people has to be part of the code committee. Like as I say, I'm a member of the code committee, and encourage maybe the engineers from here maybe participate in that to get the insight of the requirement of their product. And other insight, India's suggestion exposure the suppliers are hard to do business in India, maybe a little critical of the government is bureaucracy, and there is a problem with getting through it. So they should have been government represented on this panel to ask the questions and made it a little easier for the company from India as well as from Canada to do the business. That's just a thought. And anyway, that's my presentation right now. So that concludes my portion of that portion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burke. You sounded so hopeful. I think we noted that one major issue with sourcing components from India is the fact that there's no supply chain. Quite unlike, let's say, the automotive industry, for instance, most of the large component manufacturers in India have their warehouses in Detroit and elsewhere where it's needed. So I think this is a very good point, I think, which he has brought about. And I think the fact that supply chain is important it's like saying that we need highways before we, start putting cars in them. So it's the same way that we need to build a supply chain which can be taken advantage of by multiple manufacturers. I'm sure ICMAI will make a note of this and in the years to come work on the front, because the manufacturers are small and independently or individually it would be difficult for them to establish warehouses, establish distributors and so on. On the other hand, collectively, I think these become a great possibility. We have some minutes for question and answers. So I invite the audience to ask questions, if any, and to the which specific speaker.
Good evening. My first question to Mr. G. Shankar. By 2025, what are the new value additions we'll see in India or foresee in India as far as the elevator market is concerned?
You mean in terms of the size?
Yeah, in terms of the size, speed, and as well as the added values.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, in 2022, this year we are looking at the market at about 83,000 units. So by 2025, we definitely expected to cross 100,000 units, potentially going up to about 104,000 units. I think that's definitely going to happen. We are also seeing that there is a lot of activity in the 1.75 meters per second to 2.5 meters per second in that segment, as well as, of course, in the low-rise still continues to dominate the building sector, because we take especially the smaller areas and so on. So you will see that the market for 1 meter, 1.5 meter, or 1.25 meters and 1 meter per second would be pretty stable. But slowly you can see that it's moving up to 1.75, 2 meters per second. That will be one of the growth areas as we see it going forward. But again, I would like to correct this to say that you will see that this 1.75 to 2.5 growing in certain geographic markets, while in other geographic markets, it would still be the 1 meter per second that's growing. And one other thing which I did miss out when I talked in the brief introduction is that, yes, the home elevator market is also getting quite exciting in India. It's happening. And of course, the home elevator market, we looked at it 15 or 20 years ago as being purely hydraulic. It's no longer the case. I think there are lots of traction elevators. There are lots of small companies which have converted, let's say, the elevators that they were supplying for, say, 4 stops or 3 stops into a 2 stops elevator. And there's a lot of Indian ingenuity at work, and with reduction in pitch sizes and so on and so forth. Some fascinating elevators are also being installed. So home elevator market in general, both in the villa segment, in the upper residential segment, it's definitely becoming, I think the years to come, you'll start seeing much higher growth. We were looking at only about 5,000-6,000 units a year around India, but I think that's going to be significantly higher. And one other thing which I think I noticed, I think it was Singapore, which Shankar mentioned, that the total installed base for elevators is about 70,000 units and escalator is about 35,000 units. Sorry, Raj, you mentioned that. I'm sorry, Raj, you mentioned that. Now, this is a very interesting thing, because we are really saying that the number of escalators installed in Singapore is 50% of the elevators installed, right? Whereas in India, we are looking at the total installed base of about maybe 750,000 elevators, and we are barely looking at about 40,000 escalators, because the annual demand still is low. But this is the trend that we have to watch out for. So if you're a component manufacturer and you want to anticipate the future, you should be saying, what can I do for escalators next? So I think that's the way it will go. So those are some market trends. Any other question?
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Same question replicates to Mr. Massimino in the European market scenario, actually. I mean,
To Mr.
by
Massimo? Yeah.
by 2025, how it would be the market would be poised as the elevator is concerned in Europe?
Sorry, but I was not able to hear
Yeah, I'll
you.
repeat it again, actually,
Yeah.
because how
Well-
the elevator market will be poised by 2025 in Europe,
Yeah,
actually.
honestly, is really unpredictable because we have seen what's happened with the pandemic. Also, everybody was ready to the different scenario in 2019, and at European level, generally speaking, the trend is growing. But we were talking about platform lift and home elevator as well, and for sure is one of the market that is growing more than the elevator compared to the elevator. And we, at the moment, we are not able to put on the table numbers or percentage, exactly percentage, perfect percentage. We only can talk about different kind of products.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm really sorry. Our time's kind of... okay, one final last question. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, very sorry. I have a quick question. My question is to Shankar, Raj, and you especially. What are two things which Indian manufacturers has to do to export to other countries like Singapore, Iran, what Shankar said, and other European countries, Turkey? What are two things they should do?
You want to know what are the two things they should do?
Yes.
I think Shankar and Raj are much more qualified to answer that.
Yeah.
Obviously, two things, quality and price.
Okay.
I agree with Shankar, is quality and price. If a lot of equipment is coming, they are not qualified, they will reject it, and then we'll get a bad impression. So we have to should increase the quality and the price.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I think we now come to the conclusion of this session. I have the privilege of proposing a vote of thanks. First, the vote of thanks to my fellow panelists, Massimo Bezzi, Sulaiman Oxan, Sheila Sweat, Shankar Sundararajan, Raj Parki, and Mr. Bogaberg. Thank you very much being with us and giving us a sort of a global panoramic quick view. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Ranjit out here for really putting all this together. I think it's a tough job. Ranjit, thank you very much. And then to TAC and Priyanka and their team who have put this panel together and for us. And last but not the least, to you audience for being patient and listening to all of us. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shankar. I think per what is customary, we will be handing out the conference souvenirs. They've already been prepared. If I can please request Mr. Gopal Krishnan Shankar to please accept your souvenir. And audience, can I request you to please give a warm round of applause to everyone. Mr. Massimo Bezzi. Mr. Sulaiman Oskan. Ms. Sheila Sweat. Mr. Shankar Sundararajan. Mr. Raj Parki. Tak, would you like to declare the event finally? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ranjit, don't run away. I mean, I have no gift to give you. Just come over, just come over. When we first planned the event in 2020, I'd made a request. Ranjit, can you come and just please handle this session? He readily agreed. 2.5 years later, he's still stuck to his commitment. Ranjit, I'm not even going to say thank you very much.
I would only do it for Tak, nobody else in this room.
Okay, the panelists can go on. We'll now have our closing event. I mean, there are obviously lots of things that require to be done. There's a lot of things that have happened. Over the next few minutes, we would like to acknowledge our partners. Are they here? I think okay, while we wait for them, no, let's talk about other stuff. You come over here. Come on. So this show has been made possible by virtue of a lot of support, and specifically our partners. And the fact that they are not here is just because they are busy again closing down the show.
Good evening. We were really running out of patience to deliver this event, and it's finally happened. So I'd like to thank everyone who supported us, right from the exhibitors, especially the first exhibitors who signed up with us from 2020. In spite of the show being delayed, they still supported us, so thank you very much. A big thank you to all the associations, especially ICMAI. Thank you very much. And yes, we look forward to seeing you in 2024. Thank you. I'm very pleased to say that we've already sold around 2,000 square meters for 2024. Thank you.
Priyanka, don't go away. You need to be here. Couple of other things. There have been exhibitors who signed up in 2018 and 2019. They paid the full amount, full 100% payment. And we can't say thank you enough for the patience and the support that you continued to lend out. We had only 3 cancellations in the last 2.5 years. And one cancellation was on account of a family tragedy. Otherwise, it was just 2 cancellations that we had, which again just demonstrate what I just said. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for the support that you have lent us. I would like to see a show of hands in terms of how the show was. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it excellent? Okay, thank you very much. Okay. We know that we have had a few hiccups. And we are very carefully trying to monitor it. One of the problems that people had is that the location was not good enough. Obviously, the early bird gets the worm. But we still are trying to ensure that irrespective of where you are in the hall, you are well covered. So we are trying to take care of that. And there are small issues that we have seen, which we will definitely address in the next event, which is in 2024. Like Priyanka said, our floor plan for 2024 is open up there. Please go pick up the booths. I mean, don't come in November of 2024 and say, no, I need a front booth. It's not going to be possible. Have our partners landed up? Have they come?
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying.
They are very busy. It'll have to happen. We have had partners who have helped us out a lot. I think they continue helping us out through all the situation, and I think they still continue to remain busy. But I know many of you have got flights to catch. I know many of you have destinations to reach to, and many of you need to get some rest. So we will probably have to go to each of the partners individually and thank them. I would like to invite the ICMAI president to come and give his views of it and officially close the event.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a great 3 days intense meetings, hectic crowds. I mean, what a crowd. I believe, TAC, we had more than 10,000 footfalls over the last 3 days. That's amazing. So thank you all for the participation, and ISEE, the team at ISEE, fabulous job. Well done. So signing off on this high note, I look forward to an even more wonderful event in December 2024. I'm sure this is going to set India on the path where India is going to grow, and the elevator segment is going to play a significant part in that growth as well. So thank you one and all, and with this, let's declare the event closed. Thank you one and all. Have a safe journey back.